Today's presentation is called Here's to Your Health. My part of the presentation will be shown shortly, but the disclaimer I'm about to give is for both me and Danuta Sangard. I'm here just to share some health tips, and I'm not here to give out any kind of medical information. So the ideas, books, websites, and sources provided in this informal talk are for informational purposes only. Please check with your health provider before employing any of the nutritional strategies mentioned here. I'm not a co-author of any source recommended here, nor do I receive any compensation as a result of mentioning them. I'm only sharing what works for my health and hope it gives you some ideas to explore and perhaps share with your health provider. Of course, the same goes for Danuta. Next slide, please. So as you can see, this is my background. What's really relevant is the time I spent working at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. There I oversaw a number of agencies, but the two most relevant for this talk are the Food Safety Inspection Service and the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. FSIS, Food Safety, controls the slaughter and processing of meat, the packaging and labeling of the meat. They're the ones who are in charge of recalling adulterated product. And the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service is in charge of regulating crops and livestock before anything gets slaughtered and to your table. But this is where I learned exactly what was in the food source. I was lucky enough to have already been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis by the time I started working here at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I eventually, after quite a number of years, retired due to multiple sclerosis, but as a result of this diagnosis, I changed my lifestyle and I changed the way I was eating dramatically. Multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune neurological degenerative disease. It's in the same family with Lou Gehrig's disease. This is pretty serious. Next slide, please. So you can see that I was paralyzed for 8 months when I was first diagnosed. I was able to recover with some physical therapy, but I didn't have full use of my right leg and my right arm. Some years later, I had another very severe paralysis of 18 months, which required a very extensive rehabilitation. I had to relearn how to walk and how to look after myself, and today I'm in better condition than I have been. And I attribute this to diet and lifestyle. There are theories of causation concerning multiple sclerosis. One is the retrovirus theory, so much like chickenpox, which later gives rise to shingles. They think that people with multiple sclerosis are people who are genetically predisposed to having a reaction to a childhood virus like chickenpox, German measles, or mumps. That sits in the nerve root and later expresses itself as the neurological degenerative disease. I very much subscribe to the idea that we all have propensity by our genetics for different diseases. Like if you may realize that rheumatoid arthritis runs in your family. That's an autoimmune disorder, like multiple sclerosis. It's an autoimmune disorder. The body attacks itself. I think one of the reasons that we're seeing a rise of autoimmune disorder is as a result of what they call leaky gut syndrome, which is most prevalent in people who are sensitive to gluten. There are people who are also sensitive to other food substances, but this is the most common nowadays. Also, you've heard of like peanut allergy. Celiac disease is when somebody is very allergic to wheat. This causes the intestinal tract to leak undigested or partially digested food particles through the wall of the intestine into the abdomen. the body's immune system then is triggered. The body views those particles as invading foreigners, and this causes an extreme amount of inflammation in the body. You can get tremendous digestive distress, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, skin rashes, and a lot of people don't even know that they're sensitive to wheat, and they're having these kinds of symptoms. One of the reasons that we have a lot of wheat sensitivity today is because there's a tremendous amount of wheat in our diet. We are overexposed to wheat. If you look in your bottled salad dressing that's processed, that comes from the store, you'll find wheat. If you look in your cold cuts, you'll find wheat. It's used as a thickening agent, as a binding agent, as an agent to make a product go further. So it's a cheap way to increase the product weight and bulk, and at the same time we're all being overexposed. Now there's another aspect to this, and that is that a lot of the wheat that's out now is GMO. That means genetically modified. If you'll change to the next slide, please. This is a very good source. If you want to eat a gluten-free diet, that's what I do now. I find that it keeps inflammation down. Gluten-free means wheat-free. It also means gluten is the protein in wheat. It's the same protein that makes your breads tender and gives them structure and that nice puffiness on the inside with the crusty outside. You can substitute other things for wheat, things like quinoa, buckwheat, rice. A lot of people have sensitivity to other grains if they're already sensitive to wheat. If you don't like to make your own, there are a lot of manufacturers who make wheat products, non-wheat products, such as Udis. This is a great resource. The Gluten-Free Bible is also another great resource. I won't take you to these sites right now. These are hyperlinks. You can jot them down if you want. They'll be on the club site. Next slide, please. The Multiple Sclerosis Diet book is very useful. This diet was created by Dr. Swank in about 1955. He's an extraordinary fellow. His colleagues laughed when he talked about treating a condition like multiple sclerosis with diet. In those days, they didn't have any other drugs other than steroids, which you know can tear your body down. His diet is so extraordinary that it forms the basis of what you know as the heart healthy diet today. So this has been a very accepted diet as a healthful diet. The only difficulty I had was in the first year of the diet. You can go to this, Barry. You can click on this. The only difficulty I had was he asks you to eliminate red meat for the first year. That was a little difficult for me, but then you add that back in as you proceed, as you go on with the diet. You add back in red meat, but only pasture-fed red meat, also known as grass-fed. In his day, see, today he's 105 and he's still with us. In his day, you couldn't be guaranteed to get a grass-fed animal, so that's why he recommended lamb, but today we're very lucky. They now do grass-fed beef. It's usually organic grass-fed beef, organic lamb, grass-fed beef, grass-fed lamb, and grass-fed buffalo, which is really very good and very nice. If you're not accustomed to it, you should give it a try. If you find that it has a different taste to you, you can always mix it with beef. I like to make a mix of the buffalo and the beef. He recommends also organic cold-pressed olive oil and roasted garlic instead of butter, because the idea is to keep away from the saturated fats. Now, can you kill this and go to the next slide, please? Yes, thank you. Okay. I recommend organic.
One second.